Hey everybody, welcome back to Visual Novel Book Club. I'm your pal Slow Beef. With me, of course, my good friend Oren Ronan.
Good evening.
My good friend Jim.
Hey everybody.
My good friend Rosella.
Hello.
Oh no, we lost Turbo and Pulla, sadly, this episode.
Out of friends again.
I know. It's like everyone keeps getting called back to jury duty and it's the same people over and over and it's weird. I don't get it. But it's been we had a bit of a break due to holiday stuff, and so to that end, we are still on Chapter 3, and we are in the middle of Investigation 2.
Well, at the beginning of Investigation 2.
The beginning of Investigation 2.
Yeah.
So yeah, what's going on here?
The last thing that happened is that Susato came back during our last court session.
Just snuck straight into court.
Yep.
Yeah. So do we finally learn, like, what the heck happened to her? Does she tell anybody what's going on? I genuinely don't remember.
Oh, she's got a lot to say.
Yeah, she dumps a lot of exposition on us right now.
Yeah.
Oh boy. Yes. Sorry, yeah, it's coming back to me. Because yeah, I mean she does start by telling us that, like, yeah, Dad was just fine, which is like the least interesting thing that she has to tell us.
Right. I remember that.
Well, she also tells us that her dad and the Japanese judge are coming to the United Kingdom for the symposium the following month.
Mm-hmm.
But she was too excited, so she came back one vote earlier.
Yeah. And apparently, Rinosuke forgot who the judge was. He's like, who? What? Oh, you mean the guy who almost convicted me for murder? No, I don't remember that guy at all.
The guy whose name is literally Judge Hell? Yeah.
I think this is also the first time that we learned that the judge was also a student in the UK at one point, along with Mikotaba.
Mm-hmm.
So they had a group of people in the United States about 10 years ago, as it happens.
It was like a big law expo. Like, it was like Malfest, like the Music and Law Festival in the 19th century Britain, I guess.
I think she also gives a little more of timing for when her dad was in the UK. So I think she says that he came to the UK about 15 years ago when she was born. And then he stayed there for about 5 years until 10 years ago.
And yeah, and then mysteriously something happened 10 years ago and he left the country and returned to Japan. Because I guess the birth of his daughter was not enough.
Yeah. It also means that she hasn't met her dad until she was 5, which is a little sad.
Yeah, you only have a couple years of memories by then. It's fine.
It's fine. It is totally fine. I'm actually going to load up my PlayStation 5 while we're talking, because what I've been doing is I've been taking screenshots to remember things to bring up in the podcast. The disadvantage being, of course, you can't really annotate them, and also the sharing function kind of sucks on PS5. And so I don't know if I'm going to have the context, and hopefully I can match up which is what and where, but we'll see. Anyway. So
the next bit of information that Susato has for us is about the Giselle Britt, the murder victim, I suppose, of the previous case. And she tells us that Giselle Britt does not exist. That is an alias, and the actual name was A. Shin.
Oh yeah.
And if that should sound familiar.
Right. That was one of 4 names, right?
Mm-hmm.
That, yeah.
That was along with Kazuma and Gregson, and was there another name we didn't recognize, or?
Does anyone want to take a guess about what the A stands for, knowing what you know about Ace Attorney names?
Shin.
Hold on.
Okay. I hadn't thought about it till you said it.
I'm trying to make it into assassinate. First name assassinate.
Like assassin?
Assassination.
Asa?
I'm not going to tell you anyway, in any case. So,
but what's interesting is because they always covered her eyes, you know? Like, I guess she couldn't have been Japanese, right? Ultimately, I feel like somebody would have mentioned that or something. Like, she knew perfect English. She pretended to be.
No, she is not Japanese. I told you before that her last name in Japanese is Sasha.
Right.
Which is not a Japanese last name. And
I certainly don't know enough Japanese to figure out a pun based on that.
But both last names are instead of the pan, and it's the same pan. So yes.
Gotcha. Well, Sasha Shin actually would fall into assassin, like a Sasha Shin, you know. But, yeah.
When I first saw it, I was just like, Ashen? What are we doing?
So I guess I don't know what exactly is.
We will learn it by the end of the game. So
yeah,
you will get a pan when it comes out. Yeah,
Sure. And yeah, and then she saves the biggest news for last. Kazuma's body never ended up in Japan. In fact, it never got to the consulate when it got to land. It never came off the boat and they don't know where it is. It's gone. It's disappeared.
Yeah, the grave is like an empty grave, the one that she visited.
Yeah. Yep. And so they immediately go to where we went to literally the beginning of this game. Is he actually alive? And they start to think like that's a real possibility.
Yeah, but the problem with that, and I think they mention it now, is that if he is alive, then it means that Sholmes lied to them because he had to know.
Yeah.
The whole thing is weird, right? Because I guess aren't they with the body for a bit?
Not really. No. When Naruhodok wakes up, the body is no longer there. So
right.
Susato saw the body for a while, but she didn't touch the body. Only Sholmes did.
Is this one of those things where it's like, get me the guy who ran away from the scene, and maybe just no one ever asked Sholmes whether or not he was actually dead. Just like, oh yeah, the victim, and just we all kind of assumed he was dead. What I think it's going to end up being is we're going to ask Sholmes what's going on. He's going to say, listen, I'd really like to tell you, but I can't do it right now, unfortunately. I can tell you later, okay?
They actually raised this later on, and he did say murder. He said that he didn't say that Cosmo was dead, but he did say that a murder has been committed, which triggers the whole investigation of that section.
What is he, the doctor from Arrested Development? You could say we've all been metaphorically murdered. That's like, come on. Get out of here. But, yeah. So, yeah. What's next then? We're still catching up with Susato, right? And that was the big piece of info she had. Did she have anything else? Or?
Yeah, she also tells us about how she knew the title of the Hound of the Baskervilles.
Apparently, her dad had the manuscript, and she found it in his office.
Which, again, is like, you kept that from us?
Yeah.
That's not a lot. I can't tell you how I got it.
He had it in his office, and he caught her looking at it, and then the next time she was in the office, the manuscript was no longer there.
But again, that's not like a thing you're like, I can't tell you that information right now, because it's not like time sensitive or particularly useful. You know what I mean? I think it kind of smells like, I don't know if we're going to make a second game, so we kind of have to keep this a bit ambiguous. And it's like, that Chekhov's gun doesn't quite fire,
Yeah, their excuse is that at the end of when he swore to secrecy, he says all right, I can't discuss this, and we can never talk about this again.
Right, and then she decided that maybe her dad sucks and isn't worth keeping promises to.
Yeah, I think once she goes back and realizes that she's been lied to about him being sick, and there's other stuff that she's being lied to about, all bets are off the table. Like, that's it. She's gonna open up and not really respect anything he tells her about that anymore. But yeah, and so then also we find out that not only is it that's where she saw the title, and so as soon as she heard the word Baskervilles, she immediately jumped to that title, which is how she knew it before, as soon as it was brought up. But also the reason why she actually was called back is because that there was a sketch made by I can't think of his name, the cat writer.
Sasuke?
Yeah.
Saseki, rather. Yeah.
Saseki, and Saseki made a sketch of the collar they found. That one with the big bee on it. The dog collar with the bee on it, which I don't know how that could be connected here. And as soon as her dad saw the sketch of the dog collar, he was like, whoa, this is she needs to come back right away. And obviously things have escalated now. So it's pretty clear that this is all tying into one particular thing.
And now we're done with exposition.
Yes.
So then you know what you can do if you like trophies, like I like trophies, is you can continue. You won't get the trophy yet. It's a progression trophy. You can continue the ongoing shovel spade argument between Susato and Naruhodo.
What better way to welcome her back from Japan?
Right. Exactly. Have you learned that I'm right yet? You haven't? Because Good to see you again, though.
There's also a pretty funny stepladder joke later in this chapter.
Oh, that's right. I forgot about that. Yeah.
There was one last time too. It's the ladder in the museum, in the wax museum, but the one in this part is funnier, I think.
What is it?
You look at it, and Susato actually agrees with you that it's called a ladder or a stepladder.
Oh, that's
remember.
right.
And then Naruto goes, I expected some kind of fight here.
That's right. Yeah.
There's also the conversation that's something like, it's like, no, well, sorry. In Japanese, we actually have two different words for like a ladder and a stepladder.
Yeah, I think that's what happened last time when he talked with Iris about the ladder.
Okay. Sorry, it's been a while since you've recorded a podcast.
Yeah.
I know, right?
I just thought that joke was funny.
This time he talks with Susato, and Susato actually doesn't have any objections to what he calls it, so he's surprised.
Guess that makes sense.
So yeah, after we get all this info dump from Susato, it's time to go talk to the professor again, who has apparently been scrawling all over the walls of his cell, sort of a beautiful mind style, just as a wacky professors are wont to do. And really, the only thing to stop for, it's like a very swift thing was, of course, when we ask him, I think right away you ask him what the formulas are for. Like, is this for your, more about your teleportation machine? And he's like, no, this is my autobiography. I'm selling it now. And he like presents it in a nice little, like shows it off as like, oh yeah, you're going to, this is going to be something that you want to buy. Which is, a little fun. But then he just says that, so he, all the time he worked with Drebber, because that's who they're searching for now. Drebber, he confirms that Drebber knows his stuff, that he's actually a very, he's a scientist. He knew all his things. He's actually very smart. He's not just a con man. Like if he is a con man, then there's another side to him. And when you look for a clue, he says, oh yeah, I was in his workshop. And they're like, oh, that's great. Where is it? And of course he was blindfolded the whole time he was there. So the whole trip there. So he doesn't know where it is. But he goes into exactly like this giant shop, and the smell of the French oil, the very particular, like this very refined French oil that apparently has this smell.
He was too fancy to use normal machine oil.
Yeah.
Right. The only one you can get.
The better smell of oil, like that's a thing.
Yeah. Well, once they started mentioning like this is a special kind of oil with a smell to it, it like immediately, I think I was thinking like, well, I know who to talk to about this, Oh,
not only did I immediately know that, but I knew who was going to be involved with the special oil, because there's just this is a Sherlock Holmes thing I'll get into later. But as soon as that came up, I'm like, oh, I know what this is going to be. But yeah, so he does have a business card which doesn't have the address of Enoch Drebber, but it does have a stain on the back. Yeah,
like we ask him, it's like, hey, do you have anything that'd help us find, like a business card or something? He's like, oh wait, actually, yes. Like they just kind of throw that out there.
And I think at one point, like he's like, oh, here it is, but there's no address on it. And Rinosuke is like, yeah, I was expecting that. Of course, there's an address on it. Of course.
Of course.
Yeah, it does have a mysterious stain on the back that, as far as we can tell, doesn't smell like anything, but mysterious stains are always useful.
Right. Yeah, actually, that's the point where I was like, I know where this is going. So let's see here. So yeah, we've learned that mysterious stuff. Let's see here. There's workshop cord. All right, so according to my my notes, I think next we can go to the Lord Chief Justice's office.
Yep, and he's talking with a new character that we haven't seen before.
Oh yeah, Courtney Scythe. So there's a game called Trauma Team. And
oh my god, yes.
There's a pathologist in Trauma Team, and it's one of those things, like, if you look at them, they don't look very much alike, but they have enough of the same look where I'm like, is this a reference to Trauma Team? Did Capcom make that? And like, I knew they didn't, but they don't look alike, and her name is not Courtney Scythe or anything like Courtney Scythe, and it's absolutely not a reference, but they both have that, like, How do you?
Oh yeah, I see it. I'm looking at it now. I just googled it. Yeah.
Going from what I half remember of Trauma Team, it's a perfect match.
That's how I felt. Like I was looking at like that is the woman from Trauma Team. Then you look and it's like it's not the woman from Trauma Team, but the resemblance is crazy. You know, so like that's Courtney Scythe.
That's a super. Yeah, there's got to be a connection, right? I mean, it's not. It's an Atlas game, so of course it's super anime.
I mean, it's not a very unique design, so I can see it being a coincidence.
I think we just like goth coroners. Like that's just it's just a vibe.
I feel like the mix of like anime goth nerd is like a very rare one. So it's like, you know what I mean? Like it's enough anime tropes mixed together in a specific formula. Like I've had this Mai Tai before and it's like, it's not quite a Mai Tai. I'm like, oh, it's passion fruit guava. Oh, I remember. I get it now. You know what I mean? That kind of thing.
Yeah.
I don't know, you know, I mean, obviously everybody's big into frozen mixed drinks and anime here, right? But anyway, so...
And I don't know if you remember, but they dropped a little bit... We haven't seen this character before, but in the last game, in the first game, one of the autopsy reports was signed by a Dr. Scythe.
The name did seem familiar. I thought there was like some kind of pun going on with like Scythe, you know, like Grim Reaper's Scythe kind of thing.
Yeah, I don't know what her name is about. It's the exact same name in Japanese, so...
Oh,
Courtney Scythe. Okay.
I mean, I first noticed it in the Quartz report from this game, from this case, because we do have that already.
Right.
I believe her name was on one of the documents. I think an autopsy in the first game too. And they don't usually have names on these, so it was definitely well they had a character when they wrote the first game. They just didn't have time to put her in it.
Mm-hmm.
But they kept that in.
So we can talk to male Strongheart a little bit more, and he has a very evocative view of how he wants to deal with crime, which is to burn it all at the fires of hell, I think is the phrasing that he uses. Like once he gets the opportunity to set up his forensic investigation unit, he will burn crime to the ground, which is just an interesting turn of phrase considering how someone died.
Indeed, and also it's it harkens back to the stuff we've been hearing about Von Zieks, that there's always sort of criminals bribing juries, criminals presenting false evidence, all this kind of stuff, which is apparently plaguing the justice system there. And he knows it now. If he gets this forensic investigation team, because it's unofficial currently, if he gets it officially embraced by the government, then that's gonna not only get him to be Attorney General, which is his ultimate goal, but it also like sort of nails down these criminals. So yeah, that they're all gonna burn in hell because he can prove things now.
I think we also learned that Dr. Scythe knows Susato's dead. They studied together when he was in the UK.
Was the judge involved in that too?
Well, the judge was also in the UK at the same time.
Okay.
I think they said that the judge was studying law and Mikotoba was studying, medicine. So,
yeah.
So everyone's connected.
Yeah.
Oh, also, Susato, like when it's like, oh man, it's like the fact that your dad spent the first 6 years of your life not at home. Susato kind of says something like, well, you know, it was really turbulent times at home, and then we're like, what? And she just does not clarify. So I'm not sure what that's about.
And I think it gets back to another. Oh, okay. I think at this point, Rinosuke is like, oh, I'm not going to ask because it's it's social. It's more like awkward. Like, oh, it's her feelings involved. And he did that earlier too when they first brought up Kazuma. He sees that she's really sort of like she's like I can't believe that he's alive yet because I don't want to go back to that dark place of when he actually died. And he, you see him like sort of making a very adult emotional decision to be like, oh, I shouldn't push her here. Like this is something that you need to let somebody be, which is better than just like, I can't talk about it now. When somebody's actually like, oh, these are my emotions involved, and like as a friend, you don't push them on it. I think those are much better reasons for sort of moving on and not pressing somebody. It's certainly better writing. Like, yeah, it feels a lot better for us to be like, no, let's not be a jerk about this, versus someone to just give a weird water thin excuse. That's not a phrase. Water thin? No, it could be.
Just like a thin veneer of water, you know, like you would hydroplane on. Why not?
No, and you only spill a little bit.
Yeah.
It's worth it.
It's also utterly transparent. Man, this is actually a great phrase.
This is, water thin.
We're coining it now, water thin.
Somebody write that down for the episode title. It's just, we have to start using water thin. But yeah, so let's see here.
Now we can go to several places from here. I went to the experimentation stage first.
Well, there's also another thing we could talk to Strongheart about, which I think is Von Zeke's.
Oh yeah,
Von Zeke's brother. And like I think this is where we have the conversation. It's like, it's when Von Zeke's brother died, which was 10 years ago, because he was killed by the professor, and that's what gave rise to the Reaper. So I guess the Reaper is supposed to be like the ghost of his brother.
Yeah, I guess that's the legend, according to some people.
Yeah. Or, maybe just less metaphysical and more, that's when Von Zeeks became a real jerk.
Yeah.
But I think they do kind of imply some level of metaphysicality there about it.
Yeah, or at least that's where the idea of it starts, right? Is the idea like, people are dying because the ghost is following around and taking care of these criminals are getting, avoiding prosecution, that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, we also we ask, like, can we get permission to examine the experimentation stage? And I think it's something like the forensics team is going to clear it away like in the next couple hours. So you have until then, but you are allowed to examine it.
And you can only look, you can't touch anything.
Right. Whatever.
But you can look, so you are allowed on the crime scene. That's the gist of it.
Right.
So I went to the crime scene from here.
Yeah, I did too. I don't know if it was the best way to do it, but I went to the crime scene first because of the time constraint you mentioned.
Yeah. And now we get the cute animal I promised you and didn't deliver on last time.
Yes!
So yeah, as soon as you show up, Gregson's there, and you tell him, and then so the weirdest thing is that, so you talk to Gregson, and Gregson says that, it's okay if you talk to the Strongheart that to go examine, but Gina's in charge here. And apparently Gregson is going to be transferred. He's getting ready because he's going to be transferred to France.
Yep.
Apparently that's the thing.
And he's going to take Gina with him, so she doesn't know that yet. He didn't tell her yet, but he plans to take Gina with him.
Yeah, and he tells Ryunosuke not to say anything. And so Ryunosuke's assumption is like, you're just, you don't want to go back to diving. You don't want to pickpocket if you're not around. And Susato points out, no, he doesn't want her around because of the Reaper. Because she avoided prosecution, or avoided a conviction. So, he's concerned about her safety.
But in the meantime, every time we transition between who we're viewing, we get to see the background. The background is just Gina playing with the puppy.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And the puppy's so happy.
It's a very cute puppy.
It's like a little, gray kind of poodly thing. I don't know much about dogs.
Me neither.
But it's cute.
It's small, so it could be a lot of things depending on what he's going to grow up into.
So you don't think that's going to be the Hound of the Baskervilles? Is that what you're saying?
Probably not, right? Yeah.
Unlikely.
It will be a good twist, though, if Toby turns out to be the Hound of the Baskervilles.
Yeah.
Oh my god, if it goes back in time and becomes House of the Baskerville. No, that's happened now, right? Because we have the collar and everything, so...
Toby is a dog from Sherlock Holmes, right?
Yeah, so Toby, as soon as I saw that there was going to be a scent involved, Toby shows up almost all the time when there's scents involved in Sherlock Holmes stories. In the actual stories, and they love putting them in games too, because, put a dog in a game. So, Frogwares almost always have Toby show up at some point. Toby is normally a basset hound. He does not look like this. He's like one of those slow old basset hounds. And when he catches a scent, then he takes off and he goes, trailing through London with this marvelous nose of this old dog. And so, it's such a cliche now, not only for the actual Holmes stories, but any sort of iterative stories as Holmes pops up and other different things. And you almost always get a Toby appearance because everybody loves a dog.
Yeah,
Also, Shutakumi really loves putting cute dogs in his games.
that's true too.
Yeah. Hell yeah. Missile. Number one dog.
Usually named after Shutakumi's own dog, Missile, but this time he couldn't, so...
Well, the funny thing is, I'm pretty sure Missile in Phoenix Wright predates Missile Shutakumi's dog.
I don't... Are you sure? I'm
Is that true?
I'm not... I don't think so. I think he named...
I thought the one in Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney predates the dog, but then it wasn't a Pomeranian, but then for Ghost Trick, that was a Pomeranian and it was named Missile, and that was Shutakumi's dog.
I'll have to look into that. I thought he named the game dog after his own dog, but you might be right.
Yeah, either way, that's definitely the case for Ghost Trick, and Missile is the best dog in maybe any video game in Ghost Trick.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a great dog in Ghost Trick. Ghost Trick's really good, by the way, for anyone who's not played it. You really should do that. Maybe listen to this podcast for a little bit while you play it. But, it's really good. Anyhow.
But yeah, so basically all you get from Gina is that Gregson's the one trying to track down the Enoch Drebber, and there's a the Toby has a great sense of smell and can track down anywhere. Apparently somebody was just throwing Toby out in the street, and that's when she rescued him. And so then if you look at the back of the card, I think at this point is now when if you examine the back of the card, you realize that Toby, this oil stain, could track him down. So you present the card to Gina. Gina's like, sure, do you want me to smell this? And you're like, no, Toby smells this. So she lets him smell it, and immediately Toby's like, ready to go. And so she takes off.
Is this where we also get a photo of Drebber from her?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so we get to see what he looked like 10 years ago, because that's when the photo was taken.
Oh, wait, no, not yet. We have to go. So after Gina and Toby leave, we go upstairs to the platform where Von Zieks is examining the thing as well.
Yeah, he's outside during the day, so he's not a vampire.
Yeah, and this is where we get the photo. Because I guess you look at the birdcage. There's it's been returned because it was being investigated by the forensics team. And you don't really... Is there anything... I don't think there's anything there yet. Just it's a wooden birdcage made from Japanese... What was it? Pine or something? I forget, but I don't know if it's relevant.
So the forensic team took it away, investigated that, and then just threw it back on the stage?
Yeah.
Why?
They're not very good forensic team. It's still early. They're still trying to figure out this whole forensic thing, chain of evidence. But anyway, if you look at the machine, there's a grill at the bottom that's clearly designed for somebody to go down into it.
Yeah.
This is, it's not a real device, obviously, to transport anyone. But it is certainly something that looks like it's like a magician's trick where somebody's going to pop down and then appear up somewhere else. So you don't get a lot of information, and I think that's all we really see is just that there's just a thing that you could go down into, and then the next thing to do is talk to Von Zieks.
Well, we do notice that the little cage is damaged on the bottom, and that's really all we've got.
Mm-hmm.
And once you talk to Von Zieks and just straight up ask him about his brother, and the weird thing is that so he knows that when you mentioned to him that you knew about his brother, he's like, oh, you've been investigating me, and then as soon as Ryunosuke says that, the professor did it, he's like, oh, you don't know everything. So apparently there's more to it than you haven't really done your work. And I think he insults Ryunosuke oh, clearly again you've half-assed this investigation.
Yeah. We also tell him that someone stole the professor's wax figure from the museum, and he didn't know about that. So that's news to him.
Yeah. And then the next thing that you do is Susato's just like, well, you just ask him for help. And then he just asks him, hey, is there a clue I could have? And he's like, sure, here's a photo of Enoch Drebber. and then when Ryunosuke's kind of shocked about that, Von Zieks like, no, we're trying to track this guy down. I don't have to keep him a secret. His location is a secret from you. If you can find him, great.
And so Discovery was born. You know, what do you call it? Everybody knows what discovery is, right? We don't have to go into that. I think we probably discussed it before. But you know the thing that's
it's not that relevant to Phoenix Wright in any case.
No, it never is. No. But if you've ever heard, there's like a lawyer thing that's like, or a thing that like, if you ask lawyers like what the most accurate law movie is, they'll say My Cousin Vinny.
Yep.
With Marissa Tomei. One of the reasons too, because they make a big joke about that, is how like he finagled the prosecutor to show him some evidence. You know what I mean? And it's like, and he's like, no, he has to do that. It's the law. It's called discovery. And it's like a whole joke about it. But yeah. But anyway, so yeah, but finally, because that is absolutely not a thing in any Phoenix Wright game, and there's always like information that comes like in the middle of fucking trial, you know. But this time, yeah,
I'm not actually sure if it's a thing in Japanese law or not. I probably isn't, because Japanese law is very different from American law. But I'll have to check that out too.
Japanese law. Hold on, I'm just checking with my my friends who know a lot about. Oh, did you know that there is no discovery procedure under Japanese civil procedures? Actually, it says so. No, it might be different for criminal. Never mind. Forget it. Sorry, Google failed me, or at least.
Welcome to the podcast where we Google stuff and then pretend like we knew it all along. I'm pretty sure it's every podcast.
Oh, actually, no, wait. This is so weird. Apparently, the Japanese legal system is based on civil law? What? Anyway. All right, I'm going to have to look into this for next time now, because that's super interesting.
Yeah, it helps a lot if you realize that the main Phoenix Wright games are really based on Japanese court system, and they aren't realistic, of course, but they are much more realistic than you'd think. So...
yeah,
that's rather frightening.
So don't assume anything about what you know about American law when it comes to Japanese law.
I'm going to reveal a big secret to everyone on the podcast, and this is a thing I do in streams too. When I was in business school, I took one like law class, which is a survey law class, and it, like the professor, who was like a law school professor, was like, "This is not a law class. This is meant so when you talk to a lawyer, you sound like you know what you're talking about." But I use that every chance I get to sound like I know what I'm talking about. So. Be warned, because I love doing that, and I have no idea what I'm talking about. Anyway, sorry, go ahead.
So you understand the idea of precedent?
No.
Okay.
But I will pretend I do.
Yeah, I also took one law class for my CS degree, and they basically the only thing that I learned was what actual objections are, and so that's what I get on my high horse and get mad about. Occasionally, it has happened like once in a blue moon that an Ace Attorney game will have an actual objection, and it's wild.
Wait, I don't know if we have time to cover it in this podcast, but you took a law class for CS?
I had to take a computer ethics course, and then the subsequent the follow-up to that was a law course.
Oh, I never had to take a computer ethics course, hence NFT. Who likes? No, I'm kidding. Fuck it. But
I was the TA of the computer ethics course. I took it and then I came back.
Damn,
I was a nerd.
That's no. Well, you were a nerd, at least a white hat. But anyway, sorry. So law, it's crazy. So anyway, Van Zeeks is helping us amazingly. So. You know, like he should have been, but blah, blah, blah. So, yeah, all right. So this is good. We're bonding with Van Zeeks, our mortal enemy. Let's see here. And then...
No, we can go to several places. Let's start with
I left Forensics Lab till last, honestly.
Well, there is one more... There's one more very important thing that happens here, though. Because Von Zeeks' assistant is also here.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, right.
Yeah, that's
very important.
Yeah.
And yeah, he shows up, and Susato kind of freezes. It's like, wait. That like, just that posture and that kind of energy and stance feels really familiar. And that's like Naruhodo said when he first visited Von Zeeks' house. I think someone called this. I forget who it was.
It wasn't me. I thought it was Holmes, but it might have been, I think Pola might have mentioned, because Pola has brought this up several times.
Yeah. I knew because I'd read ahead, so I do remember it being Call, but now I think you're right that it was Poa.
Yeah. And they're just like, wait, that, and then I think Susato like calls out like Kazuma.
Kazuma-sama.
Yeah. And he goes like Kazuma, and then just doesn't really like. I think he does say something.
Yeah, that's all he says for the first
That's
time.
it. But he did speak, which is something.
Yeah, but they are now convinced that it's actually him, both Susato and Naruhodo.
Yeah, I think it's also worth noting too that Von Zeke seems sort of surprised by this. Like he doesn't really know exactly what's going on, which like means that if somehow Kazuma was made into like a mind-controlled prosecutor, that Von Zeke is probably not aware of it. You know?
Well, yeah, he says that he's lost his memory. The assistant has amnesia.
Right.
Just convenient.
Yeah, and a Strongheart gave him to Van Zix. So he came from Strongheart.
Right.
And all these instructions about no speaking, wearing the mask, it's all from Strongheart.
Yeah.
Yeah, so somehow Kazuma didn't really die. Sholmes probably knew about it. And then he ended up a couple of months later with Strongheart, who gave him a mask and told him to be quiet and gave him to Van Zix. So what's that all about? How did that happen?
This is the moment for me, like her revealing that Kazuma was probably still alive earlier on was me just being like, oh, okay, we called that one. And then Kazuma is alive, has amnesia, is working for Van Zix because Strongheart told him to, was me being like, oh, this shit's going down now. Okay. where are we going down this one? Because that's when I was like, okay, this is going to be an interesting case.
And well, all of this would be fine, but the one thing that I didn't expect was that Sholmes probably knew about it.
Right.
Which, if we assume at least some of these people are villains, and how does the Sholmes tie in?
This is boding really well for my Kazuma ends up as a prosecutor and we have to do a case against him theory that I think I brought up in the first episode.
You did.
This is now back on the table.
I think it's weird because then I was trying to play in my mind with like, is it possible Holmes didn't know Kazuma was alive? You know, which like is crazy unlikely. But he's also not the most competent detective in this rendition, so probably not. But, you know, I was kind of holding on to it.
Yeah, it's so weird. And it's also... It still comes back to the fact of, like, Holmes has something else going on underneath the surface almost all the time, which is, like, you start to wonder, like, oh, is all his incompetence... Not really. Like, you know, is he always just playing a game that he wants Ryunosuke to finish, you know, to course correct him? Like, he wants that to happen. So, yeah, it's just... But clearly, he has a lot that's hidden in this version of Holmes.
It's... Yeah.
I think it's part that and part that he really is like that. So it's kind of... He's a more complicated character than he first appeared in the previous game, but it's not all an act, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
Well, and actually, there's something later this episode we're going to talk about, which is it does actually kind of go against the it's all an act theory. But anyway, let's get there because that's a lot of fun.
So I also went to the lab last just because it was last on the list.
I think I did that same thing, too.
So we can go to the museum to Madame Tuspel's. Because we want to ask Sholmes about it, I think. I think that's why we go.
That's right.
Yeah, because now that we know that Cosmo's alive, it's like, well, then the only alternative is that Holmes is lying to us. Let's go talk to him about it. And
Sholmes makes Susato faint because she didn't expect the wax figure to be alive.
Right.
And so it took me a second to realize that's what happened. I thought she was going to give him the Susato flip, like, oh, like he popped out of nowhere, but no, she definitely faints.
Yeah. I was like, they're not even going to animate the Susato flip, but yeah.
So Sholmes says that he solved the case of the missing wax figure, and the figure is back in his display now. But then we learned that just because whoever kidnapped the figure brought it back on their own, he didn't really have anything to do with it.
No, he absolutely nothing. And then he's like, Holmes is like, yeah, don't tell Madame Gisfelis about that. Which, not like he's covering anything up, but he just doesn't want her to know that he didn't do anything.
I really do like the I need money Sherlock Holmes, honestly. It's kind of funny. Anyway, so...
Yes, he has a daughter to feed.
Yeah, so it's like basically what happened is like... So you talk out to Madame Gisfelis when you first walk in, and then she's like, he's on the clock right now, and don't make too much noise. And then of course, Sholmes pops out and frightens Susato. And then when you talk to Sholmes, you mention Enoch Trevor, and he'll be like, yeah, if you give me a clue, I can help with that. And then he's like, hey, are you lying to us about Kazuma? And he's like, let me just say the detectives lie a lot. So you should probably remember that going forward.
In other words, yes.
Yes. It's like, oh yeah, I totally lied about that. And also, like, guess what? You're going to uncover a big mystery tomorrow in court. So, just remember that I lie a lot.
Oh, Sherlock. Herlock, actually, excuse me.
And then the next thing is getting back to Sholmes needs money. He's like, oh, and you should go look at the special exhibit before you leave. That's really important for you to look at the special exhibit. Also, it's 5 shillings.
Yeah, it tells us that after we show him the photo of Drebber. That's when he insists that we go look at it. Also because we have to pay to get in, and he takes the money.
He just puts it in his pocket. And Susato points it out. She's like, if he's charging us for the exhibit, why do you put it in his pocket?
So we go into the special exhibit, and it's a graveyard scene.
Mm-hmm.
And the wax figure is back, but it's not complete.
That's right. It's missing its head, right?
Yep.
Yeah, it's very spooky. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's crawling out of the grave.
And it's not like the head is supposed to be missing, because you get the big metal bolt sticking out of the neck.
Right.
And there's a person there with a shovel who is sort of with a camera and a shovel. And if you examine the camera...
Not a person, another wax figure of a person.
Another wax figure, yes, of course. So there's like a guy with a lantern who's facing the grave, and the other one's, the professor one, is crawling out with that head. If you click on the camera of the wax figure in this display, Susato's like, oh, we'll take this. We'll need it later.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Which also, why did they put a real camera on a wax figure? Can they have a fake one?
Maybe it's just easier to find like a real camera.
I think there's a thing that'll come up later about it, not in this reading. Right. I thought, but we'll talk about it then. When it happens,
though, it's just weird. It's weird. It's a weird thing where you're just like, it seems like a prop they're just stealing for no reason.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
Well, like Susato brings up that like if you look at the plate in the back of the camera, then I guess it essentially sort of like has like the exposed, like essentially I guess the equivalent of a photo negative. And so if you look at the plate in the back, you can sort of see what the photo was. But again, like this is a prop camera on a wax figure, so like. What does that matter?
Yeah, or even if it's exactly, and even if it's a real camera they're just using because it's easier to make a fake one, why would this real camera they're using in the exhibit have anything on it? Like, there's no reason it would be connected to the actual events. But anyway, you take it, and then it was weird to me that like they make you kind of maneuver the camera around, like the actual game camera, to get to the face.
Yeah,
which is a little weird. You don't just turn around. You have to kind of like turn, duck, and then look up, and then click on it. And as soon as it focuses in, it's a guy with straight, long, dark hair, but a younger guy with straight, long, dark hair and a monocle, and it's just very clearly Enoch Drebber. And they are immediately like, "Whoa, what? This is Drebber?"
Yeah. I feel like this is maybe awkward because maybe what they're trying to convey is that it's dark in the exhibit, so you can't see that face right away, but like actually lighting that in a game might be a pain in the ass, because then it's like, why can't I see it? You know what I mean? That sort of thing. So, I mean, it's Capcom. I think they know how to light shit, but maybe that's how I was kind of reading that. Like there is some sort of ludonarrative dissonance happening, But who the hell really knows?
Well, the other thing you can look at is the actual professor figure. And you find a piece of broken glass on it, which Leonoska thinks is part of the crystal tower.
Yeah, it's unusually thick, so it had to be like used for like a structural thing, like a giant building made of glass.
Yeah, so the figure was stolen and then ended up with a piece of the crystal tower on it somehow, and then returned in a fairly good condition the next day. So,
yep,
except without the head.
Except for no head. And as soon as you talk to Sholmes about this, so that's like the next thing to do is to talk about it. And so that the first thing you find out is that after after he was sentenced to death, apparently the professor rose back from the grave. Like, that is the story that's about this, and that Drebber was the only witness to this, even though the police investigated and found no evidence of this. So
we also learned that the professor was convinced and the trial was a secret, and no one in Britain, except for the people involved, knows what he looked like, because that was kept top secret, or who he was. And I think Sean also tells us that the way he killed his victims was using a big monstrous dog.
Yeah.
Shockingly.
Unleashing a big dog on them. Yeah.
Yeah. So, that's the thing. And I think, so I didn't do it in precise the same order. Did you go to so Gina shows up here, right? That the workshop's been found?
I think Gina shows in the last place you visit, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, yes, I came to this one last. So I went to the
forensics lab earlier.
So that's that was me. Okay. Yeah. And said that they found it.
Yeah. Well. So what happened with Drebber? Sean says. So after the professor was buried, Drebber snuck into the graveyard and the next day claimed that he saw the professor rise from his grave, and that is also what turned his hair white that night.
Right.
But there's no real evidence of this.
Yeah.
But it's also part of the reason why the legend that the Reaper is actually no, it's not actually. Forget it. That was something else.
Okay.
Right.
What else?
So the last place we have to visit is the forensics lab.
Mm-hmm.
And we go in even though there's no one there. We just break into the room
and just start reading her stuff.
Yeah.
Well, first we once again learned that Naruhodo really doesn't like scary stuff.
No, he's a big pansy when it comes to horror. Yep. And but I think, correct me if I'm wrong, there's not a ton of to note here except for her journal.
Yeah, there's like a book of financials.
Yeah, we're buying like 500 scalpels a month.
Right.
Which just reeks of some kind of money laundering scheme or something, right? They're cooking the books in some way, because there's no reason. Even Susato's you would just sharpen the ones you have if you use them too much.
And also, they don't get that many bodies in a single month that they have to operate on.
500 scalpels is a lot of scalpels.
Yes.
A month. 500 scalpels alone, right? And then you must have 1,000 or something. But yeah, it's funny too, because this piece of information is one I not immediately forgot, but you know what I mean? I couldn't see its initial relevance, so I was kind of all right, thanks, but it's the thing you need to do to advance the game, so it's clearly important. But when you do, Courtney Scythe shows up, and in revealing her inner Greg Sinner Von Zeke, she's not super thrilled with us in her office, just poking around, and she's like, nah, I'm not gonna let you examine shit. Get out of my fucking office right now, But there's somebody with her who I don't think we get to see on screen, do we?
Well, before the other person shows up, she does agree to answer our questions because it was Strongheart who sent us to her.
Oh, you're right. I'm sorry. Yeah.
And she insists. The only thing that she tells us really is that she insists that, according to the investigations, the person who went into the cage near the transportation machine and the person who ended up in the Crystal Tower was the exact same person.
Right. Which is like, well, how?
Which is strange. But yeah, she claims that they know this because of fingerprints.
Right.
Which is a new technique that they came up with.
Mm-hmm.
But also, like, fingerprints would convince you that someone was there or just had been there at some point. You know, I don't... It's an odd thing to say that that's conclusive proof, but we don't really have enough information to disagree with at this point.
Right.
Yeah, and then someone else shows up, and we do see that other person.
Right, because it's like someone who's dressed like her but younger, like a kid, and she's wearing like a plague mask and calling her mommy, right?
Yes.
And she says like really creepy crap, like, you know, oh, mommy, are these two like people you've brought for me to carve up? You know, like to dissect or something, right?
I've never seen an Asian person from the inside.
She says, "Mommy, what is that?" And she says that's a lawyer, darling. And then she says, "I've never seen an Asian person from the inside." And Courtney says, "No, you can't cut it because it's still alive."
Yeah.
Right.
Remember, not on living people, darling. Yeah. Like, oh, what the fuck is wrong with your kid?
Yeah, that's
And I think that's our cue to leave.
yeah, exactly.
Near-death experiences, he calls it.
Look at the time, you know, like but let's see here. So yeah, now if we were in the wax museum, I think, or at any rate, like Gina shows up, right?
Yeah. Once we do all the things we have to do, Gina shows up and tells her that they found the Drebber's warehouse, laboratory.
Mm-hmm. Whereabouts?
Yeah.
Well, not whereabouts, actually. Yeah, you're right. His place of operations. And you can go there now. And when you do, it's Gregson's there examining stuff, and there's a big machine he's examining, right? And I don't think there's like too much outside, if I recall. And, you know, Gregson's like, all right, look, you helped us find.
There's like the machine looks like a model of the transportation machine.
Right.
Yeah.
And if I remember, Gregson's like, you know, the forensics team's going to show up any bit, but you helped us find this place, so you can like snoop around for a bit. But when they come, you got to get out of here. So you're on a time limit, sort of. You know?
And there's a locked door on the back of the room that you can't get into.
Yep.
We do find a quiver of bolts for a crossbow, so that just sort of helps. We sort of already knew that Enoch Drebber was the one who shot the thing, but we, you know, find more evidence to back that up.
Yeah, exactly.
And you find the science trophy, too, when you're examining.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. He won a trophy for science.
He's a good sciencer.
Yeah, but like the trophy said something about about youth, and I couldn't tell if he like helped youth with science or if he was a science youth.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, God,
Either way.
Bill Nye.
They are not mutually exclusive things, but no, I think it's meant to be. When, you know, years ago he won it for being the science person.
Okay, so he was a little baby prodigy.
Yeah.
And then we hear some noises from the room behind the locked door.
Mm-hmm. And I think then it's like Gregson's like, time for action.
Yeah. Before, if you look at the doors, and Gregson says that they called for a locksmith, and we have to wait for them. But now he lets Sholmes unlock the door.
Oh, that's right. You're right.
Which Sholmes does actually really well, really quickly.
Mm-hmm. And then bada bing, bada boom, we get into the room. I didn't even mean that to rhyme. And
boom, indeed.
Indeed, because the room is a total wreck. All the furniture is like upside down in here, but front and center on the ground. But nobody notices till you examine it is a like bunch of sticks of dynamite, you know, and there's a little clock on it, you know.
Yeah, it looks like a bomb.
Yeah, it's a classic like cartoon style bomb. Yeah.
Yeah, Looney Tunes hadn't been invented yet, so none of them could recognize a time bomb on site.
Right, exactly.
Didn't say Acme on the side. What the hell?
Yeah, the telltale Acme.
But when we look at the bomb, we ask Sholmes about it because he's been looking at it.
Yep.
And he says, no, it looks like a bomb, but it's not. I know what it is. It's not a bomb.
Right. And this is great because one other prominent thing is that there are footsteps there's exactly 2 footprints on the ceiling, you know, as if like basically there's like a slanted kind of roof, you know, and toward the side, there's like a skylight kind of window still closed. And like next to it, if I remember, there's like 2 footprints there.
Yeah, and they also find a rope on the floor.
And a rope on the floor.
And there's a safe in the room. There's a big safe in the room.
That's right. And Gregson says, by the way, blow me, what have we here then? Which I screenshotted because I'm very juvenile. What do you call it? So like, anyway. So then what comes next is, of course, the great Sherlock Holmes it's been a bit. What do they call it again? Like logic and reason whatever. Anyway, Sholmes is going to explain exactly what happened here, and this is like far and away my favorite one.
Yeah, he doesn't have anyone. There isn't anyone he's accusing of anything. So, but he needs a person there so he can dance around someone. So
yeah,
Susato volunteers, and she's really happy about it.
Yeah, he just tells Susato, like, just stand right here, okay?
And it's animated really nicely.
Yeah.
Like you're not just panning around the camera anymore, because basically the fact that there are footprints on the ceiling and the fact that all the furniture is upside down leads Holmes to the conclusion that Enoch Drebber has created an anti-gravity device.
Yep.
And has used it to escape through the roof skylight. And while he is talking about this cockamamie theory, which I think during this, even Naruhodo is like interjecting like, wait, what? But what's nice is like things are actually like floating upside down during it as he's explaining it. And like it's like going on around her and Susato's like looking on with wonder and stuff. And it's just really good.
Yeah.
I love this so much.
So yeah, and he claims that this thing that looks like a bomb is actually the device that reverses gravity.
Yes.
And it has a clock on it because that's how it controls when the gravity should come back.
Also, I absolutely, yeah, so that wouldn't just be like gravity forever reversed. I also love that this is, because we know it's a time bomb, the audience, that this is presumably happening while they're in mortal peril, you know, but none of them realize it, which is pretty funny. What is the things that he says? He says like, okay, what's going on here? Oh yeah. And then, so it's not only what is this device? It's an anti-gravity device. And where did Drebber go? Through the ceiling. He's escaped. To which we say, I'm going to help you out with this one, Mr. Holmes. Because one of the things we can examine is on the underside of the one of the chairs is a safe combination written down.
The first thing we have to show is that no, the furnitures aren't upside down because the gravity was reversed, and we show that because there is one vase on the floor, which is the correct way up, and also didn't break.
Yeah.
So that's how we prove that no, there was no gravitational shenanigans happening.
I think we even asked Sholmes, like, hey, is anti-gravity like a real thing? He's like, no. This is still my theory. It's like, okay, counter proposal.
Yeah, there's an entire thing there about it says that, well, when you remove all the things that are impossible, the only thing that remains is the answer, or whatever the actual quote is. I don't remember it.
Eliminate the impossible, and then whatever remains, however improbable, must be the truth.
Yeah, and then we knew that already, but he also says that once again, this is a sentence that he says, but I always wrote it for him. That came up in the last game when I was told that she wrote that sentence.
Yeah.
That line. But then we try to figure out why the furniture are upside down, and we find that one of them has a safe combination written on it.
Right. So it's like, oh, then, you know, and then Susato reminds, like, you know, when you forget things, Mr. Naruhodo, and you write them down, but then you forget where you wrote them down. And it's like, why are you telling me that? Why are you telling everyone that, Susato? You know, so.
I was like, yeah, same.
Yeah, it's a big mood, as the kids say.
Yep.
Yeah. So
So now we have to figure out where Drebber actually is. But we do that by first showing what the footprints near the ceilings are.
you know what I love though is during that at one point the Sholmes says, "Yes, I feel though that particular mystery has just become even harder to solve." Susato says, "I can't think of any other way to explain it all. Oh, life was so much simpler in those halcyon days when gravity could be reversed," which I really liked. But anyway.
Yeah, and there's like a hot air balloon, a small one near the ceiling, and we find
It's green.
Yeah, it's green.
Yeah.
And we find a shoe on it. So now we come to the conclusion that someone was throwing shoes at the hot air balloon, trying to pop it, apparently. And we actually take like a little break from the entire deduction thing here, because we want to find out what's inside the hot air balloon. And luckily, we have a crossbow. So
That's right.
And ammo.
which we stole from the crime scene the previous
Right.
day.
Yeah. Look, we're still learning about all that stuff. So
So what's in the hot air balloon?
A head.
A severed head.
and it's in like a helmet, all locked, right?
Yeah, it's all man in the iron masked up.
Yeah, yep. I was thinking the same thing. And like it looks that way. Like there's an animation for the head when you find it, and it not like a artwork for the head, and it's locked down just like that.
But apparently there is an actual head inside of it.
Yeah, but it's the head of the waxwork that was missing.
Yeah, we see the little sockets on the bottom. It's like, this we know where to put this. But yeah, we can't get it open, so we still don't know what the professor looked like. And again, apparently that's very close to the chest information. But at least we found the waxwork, so
Yeah, I'm surprised that they let Madame Tuspels make an actual like wax print of the actual head of someone who was not supposed to be known to the public. Even if she did put it inside her helmet later.
Yeah.
I mean, did they let her, or did she figure out some interesting way of getting there? So, well, okay, I'll tell you. I mean, again, this is from what I was thinking before. Is like my thinking is like somebody knows, right? And Madame Tuspels had a camera with a missing plate, which like it's weird to think somehow could be the camera, but like kind of like what other conclusion can you draw? You know? Like, I can't explain why that would be the case, but I feel like the game is moving in that direction, you know? But anyhow. So, where were we?
Well, now we're going back to the deduction, and the only place where Drebber can be in this room is inside the big safe. Because he couldn't escape it, and there's nowhere else to hide here.
Yeah. So in essence, he was flipping his furniture upside down to try to find the place where he wrote the safe combo so he could get in the safe and hide.
Right.
And he also really didn't want us to find the head, so he tried to pop the balloon before he went into the safe, but he couldn't manage to.
Yeah.
Right. Elementary. So, all right. So mystery is solved, and we open the safe, and Enoch Drebber rolls out, and he's an interesting character. I guess, you know, like a lot of Phoenix Wright characters like have sort of I guess he's supposed to be sort of like a clockwork robot person.
yeah, like he has a prosthetic hand so you can see all of this like clockwork and the gears and the twitching. But also his animation is very like twitchy and robotic, and like occasionally he'll like do a thing that makes it look like he's actually trying to do the robot, which is very cute.
Yeah.
It does.
He has a really creepy smile, though. One of his poses is smiling face, which is really creepy.
He has a monocle, a proper monocle on his right eye, if I remember. And then he has this like gyro thing that like he'll put his finger up to and his fingertip will spin like a screwdriver. And it like rotates this other thing in place over his left eye. I don't know if I'm describing that very well, but that's what it is, you know?
Yeah.
Hence, I am describing it well, but but yeah, it's very neat. I like Drebber's like appearance and stuff. You know, very neat looking character, you know. But that said, you know, we've caught him. He's hiding in the safe, you know. What a weirdo.
And he thinks that we're kind of weird because, you know, why did we do all this like deducting and bullshit when there's a time bomb in the middle of the room?
Yeah, and the time bomb is actually about to go off any second now. He tells us.
Yeah, and I think Sholmes says something like, "Well, I mean, your time bomb like was oddly shaped like an anti-gravity machine," which I thought was really good. Yeah. The resemblance to an anti-gravity device is really quite startling, I must say.
Yeah, they do manage to disable the bomb at the last second. But Drebber says that his plan was that he put a bomb in the room and he set it for a long enough time that he thought that whoever came into the room would just see it and run away.
Right.
And then he was in the safe, which is bomb-proof, so he wouldn't get hurt.
Right.
But all the evidence would be destroyed.
And there's a latch on the inside of the safe.
Yeah.
Which was the part that I was worried about.
But little did he know.
That way he'd managed to survive and have all the evidence blown up. And also not kill anyone because he thought everyone would have escaped him by now.
Anyone smart enough would have run away.
Yeah.
Lesson learned.
I think Sholmes even says, like, doesn't he say, like, the reason, oh, yeah, it looked like an anti-gravity device. You know, I saw one in a dream. Does he say that?
Yeah, I think so, yes.
Because that is actually a reference to a Sherlock Holmes footnote. They're just I don't know what the context is, but there's just like a little footnote that just says, you know, this was revealed to me in a dream. And that's enough evidence for whatever he was trying to explain there. So if it's good enough for Sherlock Holmes, it's certainly good enough for Sherlock Sholmes.
Exactly. But yeah, I think that's pretty much end of chapter, right? Because
Gregson wants to take him away, obviously, because he has to be in the court tomorrow. But the last thing we see is that
that's right.
Drebber tells us, "Well, you stopped this bomb, but I set another one
outside."
Right.
On the experiment on the stage where the machine is, and then the last thing we see is that exploding.
Yeah. Which is pretty cool then, because then that was like a really interesting, well, how the hell are we going to like prove anything about this machine now? So, with reason and truth, of course. But yeah, I was very happy with this. I thought this was a great investigation section, I guess. You know?
Yeah, there was a lot in it for something without a safe point in the middle.
It did have a dog in it. The dog is very cute.
Yes.
There were like 4 new characters introduced here, including Toby.
Yep,
that's right.
And all interesting ones. The one thing I got sort of for theory crafting stuff, the one thing I got kind of hung up on at the end was as soon as they revealed that the head was locked down under this, you know, the Men in the Iron Mask stuff, I'm like, okay, who could that be? Is it somebody we've been introduced before, or maybe a character who's been mentioned before? And my first instinct was, wait a second, is it not that Von Zieks' brother was murdered by the professor, but Von Zieks' brother, you know, the whole Darth Vader thing is the professor?
Huh. Interesting.
Yeah. So I don't know if it's accurate, but that's the first thing. That's where my mind went immediately. Like, oh, if it doesn't look like Von Zieks, is that who this is?
So I was thinking, and again, this is silly, but like I was thinking maybe Drebber had put on the helmet that he didn't want whoever like got the head to realize who it was for some reason.
I think it's implied that he wanted to do the opposite. He doesn't know who it is, but he wants to find out. And that's why he stole the figure, or one of the reasons he stole the figure. Because it's also obvious that he needed the figure to do something with the murder trick, because it ended up with a piece of the Crystal Tower on it.
Yeah.
So it's involved somehow.
Yeah, honestly, the thing that got me about this investigation was that, like, once Susato revealed that Cosmo was probably alive, I completely lost interest in the case. I'm like, look, there's way more important stuff to be investigating. There's all this stuff about the intrigue about the Hound of the Baskervilles, and that's really interesting. And literal Kazuma being alive. And I guess there's still this thing that's something about, the explosion teleportation devices. Fine. Like, I am no longer, I don't care.
Yeah, I mean, even though we encounter Hairbrain in this investigation, I immediately forgot about Hairbrain. I was like, oh yeah, whatever, that guy. Oh, yeah, the guy there's on trial? Yeah, whatever. I don't care about that guy anymore.
What do you call it? I don't know. I really still like Drebber a lot. Like, he definitely kept my interest in the case. I don't know how to feel about the sort of resurrection angle, I mean, Phoenix, don't get me wrong, like, these games aren't like grounded or any, you know what I mean? They use a lot of like tropes and things like that. But like, I'll admit I was kind of put off a bit, that like, oh, we're doing that kind of thing. But that said, I like Kazuma enough that I'm like happy with it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I just wanted him to be a character so bad.
Yeah. And I do think that they planned for this. It's not like that they killed him in the first game and then decided that he needs to come back in the second one. It's not a comic book thing.
Oh, yeah.
This was planned from the beginning.
Yeah, it's not a retcon. Yep.
No, I agree with that for sure. Yeah. For sure. Yeah, I can't theory craft too much, obviously, because I know what's going on and stuff. But, but
there's a lot of moving pieces here. A lot of characters involved, and we don't know who are the bad guys and who are the good guys.
The only thing that I noted at this point was that we have the coroner's report, and the coroner's report has a name on it. And if it had just been a coroner's report with no name, then it would have been absolutely factually true. But the fact that it has a name on it means that person could be lying.
That's right.
Yep.
We know the name, right?
Yeah, no, it's Courtney Scythe. So
it's not though, right? Isn't it like Courtney some other name? Because that's what I was like, what's going on here? It's a Courtney, but it's not Courtney Scythe.
No, this one is Courtney Scythe.
Is it?
I think you're thinking of a different piece of evidence.
Okay, never mind that.
I don't know if we have yet.
Yeah, it doesn't.
I don't think we do.
Yeah.
I think you're thinking of the future.
Yeah, I think I am thinking of the future.
I've also looked a little bit into the future, but
it's not a huge like thing anyway. But like, well, whatever. At any rate,
I certainly hope not, because I haven't looked in the future.
All right. Well, sorry. It's hard to keep the future and the past straight. No, yeah. So
time is a circle.
It is. A true detective. Anyway, so
it is.
Okay. We've seen that a bit. All right. What else we got? Anything else?
I think that's it. We're gonna. Is there anything else we want to speculate on?
The only other thing that I think you might want to speculate on is how did Susato's dad get a copy of Iris's story in his lab?
Oh yeah.
Also, how did Iris write a story 10 years ago? Isn't she like 8?
No, she wrote a story now, but the story is based on notes that she found that Dr. Watson or Wilson wrote that she found in the chest.
That's right.
So Sholmes and Wilson had some kind of adventure involved this, what we now are pretty sure is the dog that the professor used to kill his victims. And Wilson left notes about it in the chest, and Iris found those notes 10 years later and wrote a story, which then Sholmes told her she couldn't publish, and the story also ended up somehow in Susato's dead lab in Japan.
Yeah. Almost like he had copies of Wilson's notes, who Wilson was in Japan at the time to get murdered there.
Yeah, but it seems like it was actually Iris's manuscript and not just some notes. It had the same title.
That's true.
Well, that is a mystery.
Yep,
yeah, because it only went. It was in. But weren't those notes in the pawn shop? And then it got from the pawn shop.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the so the notes. That's right. So so the manuscript was based on the notes. So maybe they both had the same title.
Maybe. Though it's kind of a story title, The Hound of the Baskervilles.
Yeah.
It is. It's very much so.
I wouldn't think you title your investigation notes that way.
So.
Maybe Wilson does. He seemed like a very literary kind of guy.
Maybe. I don't know. What do you call it? But I'm interested to find out. Speaking of finding out, predictably, of course, the next reading thing is through the end of the chapter. Yeah. So yeah. This is. I think it's about it. It's one of those things where it's about as long as a standard Trial Tartu, but there is an epilogue to it. So it's like I think roughly a little tiny bit shorter than last time, but still like about the same equivalent. You know. And we can talk scheduling stuff because we're doing it on an odd day due to holiday stuff. But after that, yeah. With that said, I guess anything else before we go?
No.
Can gravity be reversed? We'll find out next time. We found out this time too, yeah. So we'll double find out. All right. Well, thanks everybody. Have a good one.